Welcome to the PCL podcast series. My name is Yerande. The PCL podcast series features conversations with leading expert professionals who share insights on thought-provoking perspective on business strategy, communication, people development, culture, and lots more. Today, we're going to dive into the digital learning space, and the topic up for discussion is dispelling digital learning myths and misconceptions. The face of corporate learning has changed significantly from going through a stack of standard operating procedures and product manuals to setting up multiple sessions to deliver training. With the emergence of technology integrating into our daily lives, such as making payments, monitoring the weather, it has also crept into individual and corporate learning. Despite the growing popularity and adoption of this mode of learning, there's still some clarity that needs to be made in terms of the suitability for this mode of learning in today's workforce. Dispelling the myths with me today is Paul, a senior partner in Digital Learning Unit in PCL. Hi Paul, good to have you here today.
Hi Yewande, my pleasure to be here.
And also here with me is Modukwe, a partner, business operation in PCL. Hello Modukwe, it's very nice to have you here today.
Hi Yewande, it's good to see you too.
All right, great. So we're going to go right into the questions that we have for today. Modukwe, a lot of people feel like digital learning has replaced the physical mode of learning. What do you have to say about that?
I think the right statement should be digital learning now complements face-to-face learning. I wouldn't say it's replacing face-to-face learning because yes, face-to-face learning is fantastic. All right, it has its place, okay, in capacity development in organizations. You can't take out the physical interactions, neither can you take out the social connections people tend to enjoy when they come together. But digital learning in today's world, all right, we can see that digital is transforming a lot of our business operations and a lot of talent agility is required. So because of that, digital learning is very important to supplement. And I would say it continues where the face-to-face learning actually stops. All right, because for a face-to-face learning, it's actually scheduled, all right? But with the demands for today's talent, learning can no longer be an event, all right? And this is where digital learning comes into play, where you can actually log onto the platform at any time and take the required learning. That's why I said it's a performance support tool. So let's say, for example, you had an appraisal session in April, okay, and some gaps were actually identified. And the next physical training to address that particular gap is maybe 6 months down the line. So are you going to wait until 6 months down the line to address that particular gap? No. So this is where digital learning actually comes to play, whereby you see courses that align to various competence gaps, and you are able to take that course immediately and perform on the job. So that's why we say digital learning provides you that just-in-time support for employee performance. So in a nutshell, I wouldn't say it as it won't replace it, but to continually to drive the continuous learning culture that is required in today's digital world, digital learning definitely must be implemented in organizations.
Okay, thank you for that. So Paul, do you think one has to be tech savvy before you can take up online courses?
My direct answer will be no, and that is the truth, because we have seen over time that digital learning has been simplified and made very easy. But I can appreciate where that question is coming from. We have so many generations in the workplace, from the traditionalists, your Generation X, down to your Generation Z, who I would call digital natives, children that were born with iPads and they began pushing the buttons right from when they were crawling. Okay, so many will say, well, digital learning is for those ones because they find it easy. But that has been debunked over time. I will always use the example of my old mom in the village who can operate her smartphone and be able to press buttons. Okay, so if she can do it, then anybody can actually take advantage of digital learning. In fact, if you can use Facebook, if you can use Twitter or Instagram, which I see all ages use today, then clearly digital learning will not be a challenge for anyone. So it is just about having the right mindset to try. Apps have been developed that has made it very easy. So with just 1 or 2 clicks, you are there and you're already learning. So clearly, there's no need to fear or worry that you need so much of technical knowledge to be able to take advantage of digital learning.
Yes, you're right. I think it's just having the right mindset. I mean, if you believe you can use your mobile devices, then you should be able to take up courses online.
Absolutely.
Well, great. So, I know how I usually get excited when I have my in-class training because I'm looking forward to interacting with my colleagues, sharing my ideas. So now that a good number of organizations are like slowly embracing digital learning, do you feel like the social interaction has been taken out of the social interaction has been taken out in terms of learning?
Not at all. Not at all. And like I mentioned earlier on, that digital continues to transform every facet of business. So also learning. So initially, when digital learning started, yes, it was just a case of plug and play. Yes, you plug in a course and you just listen all through. But today, that has changed, has evolved to actually meet the demand of today's learners, knowing fully well that most organizations are now incorporating digital learning to develop the capacity of their staff. So the social interactions are actually there. The digital learning platforms now have been designed in such a way to drive that. So what you'll find in most platforms are what you call chats or forums. So everyone is able to share their different ideas about the particular topic, just like how you would do in class. All right, you could have a case study that is assigned to everyone, and you go on your forum or your chat room, and everyone brings in their own ideas, and you'll be surprised that that social interaction that you would have had physically can also be duplicated using the online platform. So a lot has happened, a lot has actually evolved, okay, to ensure people don't miss that physical interactions. I'm not saying the physical interactions are not important, they're still very important, but with the demands, okay, that we need, with the demands for capacity development today, we can't always rely on those physical interactions. So the platforms have now been designed to mimic what the physical interactions would have done.
I like that term, mimic. Yes, exactly. So now let's take a look at the kind of courses that we have. Most people would prefer to go to online learning just to address their soft skill. So now let's go to the technical skill. Do you think it's something that can also be addressed using digital learning?
My answer will be yes, and I have reasons for that. From where digital learning started, it is easy to have that apprehension that, it's only leadership courses, it's only, emotional intelligence courses that you could just, flip and try to understand what to do and so on, and not courses that you can actually, practice, things you can actually do, or buttons you can actually push, and so on and so forth. But that has actually been demystified because over time, the tools that we use in designing digital learning courses have also advanced. One of those tools is what we call the authoring tools. I use the tools to author content. Those authoring tools have advanced. So now you can use those tools to simulate. You can use them to create scenarios, to replicate even very complex engineering designs. As an example, one of the courses that I was involved in designing was that of a gas production process. You can imagine. Just think about the gas production trains, and we were supposed to try to mimic that whole process. See, that's not a soft skill course, okay? It is actually a very technical course. So with the proper and right authoring tool, you can actually create those very difficult, simulations and scenarios that, can make even technical areas be created and designed using digital learning. Besides, too now that we have, augmented reality and visual reality, okay, which are, designed to allow you be able to experience, using special glasses, what you're trying to learn. And they're very practical for, high consequence industries like, the health sector, like the electrical sector, where you don't want people fiddling with those devices because they can actually, lead to death if the person is not careful. So that means if I can, simulate that and make it real to the individual. Take, for instance, an electrician who is trying to fix the power problem, and I bring that to his face and he can see it very clearly. It makes it easier for him to be able to know where to touch when he goes to the physical device. You see? So clearly, we've been able to bring, technical courses to digital learning. One last example I would like to give is that of, cloning. Okay, in a recent project, we were able to clone a banking application that allowed the users to be able to learn how to enter transactions. That's not soft skills learning. They have to enter transactions, practice, and be able to get, versed in the process of using those applications. So clearly, digital learning has advanced and will continue to advance. So I think that, many who have that misconception might want to try. They can talk to us and we can, show them or share with them what has really changed and how we can use digital learning to really simulate things that are even technical.
Well explained. Thank you so much, Paul. Okay, so I have taken a good number of courses online, and one that I would really appreciate is the bite-sized courses, right? But sometimes I do feel like these courses are watered down, and then the real informations are taken out compared to when you're in class training, right? When you spend hours learning and you're certain that a lot of information are passed across. So now, Modipe, do you feel like taking courses online, the content are sort of watered down in order to fit into those bite-sized contents that that are just needed in time of work?
Well, straight answer will be no. All right, and then I'll start by saying this. I don't know if you've heard about this concept before, scrap learning. So scrap learning is learning that was effectively took place, but unfortunately you couldn't apply it to your work in about maybe 1 to 2 months. So it's scrap because you can apply it immediately. And unfortunately, that happens when you sit in a classroom for about 5 days or 3 days learning. All right, but you see, this is where digital learning actually comes to play, where the courses have now been designed in what you call bite sizes. And the whole idea is to ensure learning takes place. For us, it's not just digital learning is not about you ticking the boxes on if you've attended a training. It's about performance support. All right, it's about providing you with the right learning to help you deliver on your job. So because it also goes with the concept of just-in-time learning, where you can just go to the platform at in and out of season to learn. People think is actually watered down. No, it's not. It's just been designed with today's modern learner in mind. And we all know that today's modern learner, the attention span now has reduced. All right, so we don't want people sitting down in the front of their system for 2 hours and they're dozing off. So in a particular course, you'll find it broken down into what you call the bite sizes. So I could have a 40-minute course, and within that 40-minute course is broken down into 3 minutes, 4 minutes burst of different courses. All right. So what that enables is that at every point when I come to the platform, I can learn a concept that would improve me as an individual. So I don't have to take the whole course, because the concept of digital learning is to learn at your pace whenever it's convenient for you. And just the whole idea is to encourage people to learn. So I have a gap somewhere, I go to my platform and I just look for a particular header that would align with what I need to learn. I take it and I'm good, I'm better for it. So I wouldn't say it has been watered down, but has been designed to actually fit the demands of today's digital learner.
Safe to say, fit for purpose content.
Exactly.
Great. Okay. So here's one interesting myth I know that a lot of people would have probably discussed about it. It's the one on feedback. So do you think feedback is not so effective during our online courses?
Well, I appreciate why that might be a concern, because many people think that digital learning, it's packaged learning. Okay, the learning has been packaged and delivered to you, so there is no interaction between you and the source of that learning. But again, over time, as digital learning continue to grow and improve, the platforms that are designed to warehouse digital learning have now allowed for interaction. Earlier on, you heard Modipe talk about, the creation of forums and chat rooms that allows people to be able to communicate. So I can decide to group people into different learning cohorts. Okay, so maybe there are 10 people who are going to embark on a particular project, and I bring them together to actually learn through a particular set of courses. Now, the platform allows them to use those forums and chat rooms to be able to interact, okay, and share feedback. Some of the applications even allow you to create blogs that allow you to share what you've learned, and others come there and comment. Okay, so that social interaction has sort of been brought into most digital learning applications too. And besides, the number of advancements also that we've seen where a digital learning platform allows you to interact with the machine that gives you feedback. So for instance, if I'm taking technical courses, like I'm learning a programming course, and in the course of that, I want to actually test out to see how the code I'm writing is looking like. I have a virtual machine that is connected to my digital learning platform that I can connect to and actually program using my digital learning platform. Okay, and then behind that virtual machine, you have a mentor who is actually watching what you're doing and able to provide you feedback on what's happening. And so with that integrated into digital learning platforms, you can see clearly feedback becomes possible. So while I appreciate that as a concern, because if I'm sitting right in front of you, I can ask you a question and you can answer me. But, most times now with virtual work, I don't need to be sitting in front of you. I can actually send you a message on WhatsApp. I can send you an email. I can send you, a chat on Yammer, on any of these other communication tools. Okay, so those also have been embedded into digital learning platforms, making it easy for you to be able to get feedback on the things. And one last thing to just mention, a digital learning platform that I know now even has a teacher and student feature that allows students and teachers to be able to interact. Okay, it could also be an SME or subject matter expert who was the brain behind creating that course. Okay, so you can interact with him to understand some of the things behind his thinking in designing that course. So clearly, I think there's no need to worry and be concerned about that, because already we've seen that advancement integrated into digital learning.
So far we have debunked some myths and been able to highlight values that digital learning brings to the organization. So I'm sure one question that will be running through various HR minds are the costs. So Modipe, what do you think is the capital investment in adopting this learning platform or this digital learning within the organization compared to in-class training?
Okay, that's usually $1 million conversation that we have with most heads of HR and even business owners. With the economic crunch, most organizations, the training departments in most organizations tend to take a great hit. All right. And I always tell people that the best way to maximize or to optimize your training budget is actually through the implementation of digital learning. So there's a research that actually says that 70% of most training budget is actually on logistics. And how is that? So you have an organization that has employees spread across the whole of Nigeria or even outside Nigeria, and they have to bring people in at some point in time for training. That's a huge chunk going on logistics, accommodation, transportation, feeding. But all this can actually be mitigated if those trainings are deployed through digital learning. And let's take, for example, there's some compliance courses organizations need to take. Let's say in the financial institutions, anti-money laundering. And before now, it used to take them having to bring everyone from the different locations to take this particular course. And that was a huge one. But with the advent of digital learning, those courses can now be converted into digital assets, and people can actually learn at their own pace within a stipulated time. And they can actually tick the compliance box. All right. And the advantage that even does to most organizations is that learning is now standardized. Everyone is learning the same thing that is required of them. So I wouldn't say e-learning is actually a huge cost. I think in the long run, the advantage, the benefits that organizations will get from it, from the cost perspective, outweighs any initial investment they'll be putting into it. Because another very key point I need to make here is that learning helps you to increase your reach. All right, it drives inclusion in organization. Because before now, what you find out is people just in a whole year just attending one training. In today's world, okay, it's not sufficient. Okay, we need to drive continuous learning. And most organizations can't afford that if they're going to deploy classroom trainings all the time. You can look at it in terms of budget, but also in terms of time. Do you want to be bringing people out of their very busy work schedules to come to class at every point in time? No. All right, so this is where the digital learning actually now comes to play, where people can learn at their own pace and at their own time and transfer that knowledge to work to drive performance. So if you look at it in the long run, all right, you realize that deploying digital learning is a lot cheaper, all right, and more cost effective than any other form of learning intervention.
And this brings us to our last question, Paul. So do you think digital learning is only suitable for organizations that have their employees spread across different locations?
Interesting question. Well, I would rather think of it as digital learning making it easier for organizations to achieve the development goals of their people. Okay, and that applies whether you are a 5-man team, a 10-man team, a 100-man team, or in thousands or hundreds of thousands. I mean, we've seen digital learning implementations across businesses that have close to 15, 20, even up to 100,000 employees, as the case may be. Okay, so the focus for me should be on what is accomplished by digital learning. And I think if I want to, focus on that, the first thing will be the fact that digital learning has made it possible for learning to be embedded in the workflow of the employee or even in the employee's life. And what do I mean by that? So think about Siri, think about Google Echo. Okay, these are devices that can respond to questions that you ask them. So you can ask Siri, how can I find the address to this location? And Siri would come back with a response. So that's what digital learning is doing. Okay, I am working on a project, I'm stuck. Okay, I could just go to my digital learning platform and actually ask a question, literally, and take a 5-minute nugget or course that addresses that problem or that challenge I'm having. And voila, I'm done with that and move on. And you can see my performance has indeed been ticked off, increased almost immediately. So clearly, digital learning makes it easier for employees to be able to develop themselves. With digital learning, it is easier for us to learn the same thing at the same time, and it reduces the time to achieve that competence or the time to achieve that, to close that learning gap. So clearly, the focus should be on what value digital learning brings. Finally, I'd like to talk about culture integration. So with any effort around culture and embedding the right culture, digital learning platforms are the very best in helping you to accomplish that. Because on the platform, you can bring all your culture artifacts and the new culture, behaviors and attitudes, and implement them on the platform. So it's easy for me to go in, and they are reusable without limit. So if I want to, check, I can go and ask people, all right, you know what, we're going to do another run of this. That's not possible with a physical, classroom training. You can't, every time you want to make people learn something, bring all of them back again. Okay, so clearly with digital learning, I can integrate the best culture that I want and consistently monitor how well people are doing in imbibing that culture. So you can see, my summary to that question again is that the focus, should not be on whether we are many or dispersed or less. It's about the value that digital learning brings to the organization in helping the organization accomplish its development goals for its employees and turbocharging their performance.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for sharing your insights today.
Thank you very much, Yewande. Those were interesting questions, and I'm glad we were able to find some answers
Great.
for our listeners.
I'm glad as well. Thank you, Modupe, as well. Thank you for sharing your insight. It was very interesting.
Thank you so much, Iwande. I'm happy to have debunked some of these myths. Thank you.
I'm sure our listeners were able to get clarity on digital learning and will continue to leverage digital learning platforms to upskill themselves in today's world of work. Do follow us on our social media platforms and look out for our next episode. Bye for now.